Hello everyone and welcome to my middle game show. There has been so much chess going on these days. Today Hu Yifan claimed the world champions title. She beat Maria Muziciuk 6-3, so she's once again the women's world champion. And also we have the candidates tournament going on. 3 rounds have gone and tomorrow there will be a new round. Who will be the challenger of Magnus Carlsen? What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Today we will continue studying as usual about weaknesses because March is about weaknesses, exploiting weaknesses. We know how to exploit doubled pawns, and today we will focus on advanced pawns in the castle. So that's when your opponent becomes really brave and starts pushing those pawns in front of his king. We will see what to do against that. Let's bring up the board immediately and begin with our first position. I hope that I can find it, and it's not time to think yet, but let me bring back the camera, yeah. So we have quite an old game. All I wanted to show with this one is a very typical maneuver. Well, maneuver, you will see. It's not even a maneuver. It's a position where this typical Italian game, we pin the knight with bishop g5. I'm sure that everybody knows this, so this is just to warm up with. There's no exercise in this one. We simply will see this example to show what I'm talking about. Black is not playing very well this game, but after this exchange on c3, even worse, because he gives up the dark squared bishop, this pin, the bishop on h4, is really, really annoying. So black decides to do something against it and plays g5. Now, this is the moment when I think everybody, all of you, are shouting, knight takes g5, and yes, that's the move. So this is not an exercise, this is just to warm up and get ready for the topic, because g5 is a very bad move. The position was already bad because black shouldn't have given up the bishop, but it's not that much of a disadvantage. g5, on the other hand, is a losing move. So after knight takes g5, h takes, bishop takes, we are a piece down. We have just 2 pawns for the piece. But this pin is now killing black's position. So he tries to go away with the queen. That's why he plays king g7. But now, this will be the first time that I really ask you to think. We have this pin. The knight is pinned on f6 by this bishop on g5. How do you exploit it? How to put more pressure on that knight? Let's bring up the time to think, and then we are ready for the solution. It's easy, we are just warming up. So tell me how to play here with white. That was quick. f4, of course. After f4, this game was actually over because there's not much to do here with black. Let's just demonstrate it. E takes f4, for instance. And after rook takes f4, we will play bishop takes f6 and win the game. Also, if black doesn't take, doesn't really matter. d6, for instance, we capture on e5 and win because of bishop takes f6. That was easy, wasn't it? So what was the mistake in this game? First of all, if you want to do something against a pin like this with the bishop on h4, it's not a really good idea to give up the bishop, because this bishop could have gone back to e7 and then the pin is not there anymore. So giving up this bishop and then playing g5, that was really the losing move here. g5 is a really bad move. Many times when you are pinning the opponent's knight on f6 or on f3, if you are playing with the black pieces and the opponent wants to go really brave and chase away that bishop with moves like g5, it usually doesn't work because of this knight takes g5 sacrifice. But this was easy. Let's go for a lot more complicated game, which is Motile against Siebrecht, two grandmasters playing against each other, and the opening is the Sicilian defense. I see a question about the show that it's not moving to Monday, but since I'm the commentator of the candidates tournament here at Chess24, I cannot do the show on Wednesday because there will be a round at the candidates. So now this week we have a show today on Monday, and the next one will be on Friday. By the way, on Friday we will also have a thematic tournament. So on Friday there will be another show, a new middle game show with a thematic tournament right after that. So be here on Friday as well, and stay tuned for the announcements for the schedule of the show and the thematic tournament. Let's go to the middle game, because you know that we are not here to discuss the opening, at least not in this show, because we don't have time to cover everything. This is a Morphe setup against the Hedgehog, and what we will see later, because what I'm curious about is a position quite a lot of moves away from this position. This is all normal so far, but later, look at this. There we go. F6, G5. This isn't so bad, but soon we will exploit it, because first of all, we should think, why is Black pushing those pawns? He wants to do something. It's not so easy to play just with all your pieces behind the 6th rank. The only really active piece that Black has is this E5 knight. But that's not enough. So he decided that he will launch an attack against our king by playing F6, F6, threatening to trap our bishop on H6. So he does have a big threat. You have to realize that after F6, G5 would threaten to trap the bishop. So that's why we come back with the bishop. And after G5, we don't really care about that attack. There's no way to exploit this weakness immediately. But later, we will do something about this G5 pawn. So let's just continue the normal plan. There's this hole on B6 that's in the structure. Since the pawn is on A6, you can see that the B6 square is a really cool place for our knight. So we just want to go knight B6. If Black wants to avoid it, he has to go knight D7, but that means that the C8 bishop is blocked. He should go B6, bishop B7 later, but in that case, with bishop E2, bishop G4, we will attack this pawn on E6, because that is a weak pawn. So we have a hole here on B6, that's for our knight, and there's a weak pawn on E6 so far. And also this G5 push, we will see soon that it might not favor Black but us. So instead of knight D7, what happened in the game was bishop F8, knight B6, of course we will jump there if we can, and after rook B8, bishop E2, White is simply improving his pieces by each move. Bishop E2, we might go bishop H5, or if the knight goes away from E5, then bishop G4. Simply the bishop is more active on E2 than on F1. Queen F7 and B4. So simple. We want to open the position because we want to break through, we want to play C5. The problem here for Black is mainly this knight is really annoying here on B6. It doesn't let the B8 rook to move, and also this bishop is suffering, doesn't really have a diagonal. So we just want to open quickly the position, because you know that when you have all your pieces developed and the opponent is suffering with pieces on the back rank, you need to open the position to take advantage of your advantage in development. So if we have the initiative, if we have all the pieces developed, we need to open the position, and that's why B4, C5 is the correct plan. H5. Look at that. He is going for it. He wants to give us mate. Do you think that this attack can succeed? G5, H5, G4. Are you scared with White? Would you be scared here? Let me see if anyone is getting scared that we are getting mated. Tell me guys in the chat, is it scary? Are we getting scared here with White? Look at that king on G1, and those pawns are coming against the king. G5, H5, then he will push G4 as well. He will open the G5. Is it any scary? Benedict is saying nope. I like that. We shouldn't be scared. Two little big guns, PJK is saying. Some of the comments I shouldn't read. I am always scared. Not really scary. No. Capital letters, no. Yes. Very good. And Chess VIP even said the correct move here. I didn't ask for the move yet, but of course, first of all, if we decide that the opponent's threat is not that big, then we will just go and continue with our plan, which was to open the position, break through with c5, because we want to open the position and see what happens afterwards. D takes, B takes, and now after queen g6, it is really time to think. Tell me how to continue here with white. We have managed to open the d file. That's where we have the queen and the rook. Also, the other rook is nice on c1. Actually, all our pieces are nice. But we want to take advantage of these pawn pushes on the king side. We want to make the black king weak. So how to start annoying black's pawn structure on the king side? You guys are brilliant. All the questions seem to be so easy when you answer immediately with the correct move f4, and you also explained why you play f4, because you want to open more lines. Yes, that's what we want. The opponent has weakened his king with those pushes, g5, h5, also this pawn on f6. There's a weak pawn too on e6, so we want to open the position and say, look at your pieces. You have a rook on b8, you have an undeveloped bishop on c8, so I will just open the position and tell me, how will you protect your king with such bad and undeveloped pieces? It will be tough. f4, brilliant move. And in this position, imagine g takes f4 is already a pretty bad move, because after the simple bishop takes f4, I have drawn a lot of arrows here. We have so many threats. We are threatening to capture on e5. First of all, that would win a pawn if we want. We don't have to capture, it's just an option. The knight cannot move away because that's a pin. I mean, he can jump knight c6 to attack our queen, but we move away, and now look at this. Look at his rook, look at our knight. Where is that rook going? Nowhere. So the knight cannot go away, we will capture on e5 if we want, or we play rook c3, rook g3, which is a beautiful rook swing, and if we get to g3 with the rook, queen on g6, king on g8, I think this is the moment when black started regretting pushing g5, because here f4 is such a strong move because this pawn is on g5. Okay, yeah, it's cool to attack a knight on e5. But the main trouble here is that it's not only that we push the pawn, it's that we are opening lines because there's a pawn on g5. Imagine the pawn was on g7. In that case, I will even color it. We are talking about not this guy here on g5, but on g7. So f4 would attack the knight. Yeah, that's unpleasant. But here it's even worse because f4 will open lines. If you push your pawns in front of the king, that means that it's a lot easier for the opponent to create breakthroughs. So with f4, we just ask the other pawn, now what? Will you capture me? Or will you let me capture you? So there will be something, there will be fires opening, there will be lines opening, diagonals. So f4 is a really strong move, and this is the way to play when the opponent goes so brave, pushing the pawns in front of his king, and we tell him, okay, you wanted to give mate? Maybe you will get mated. Knight c6 was played in the game, and here, of course, we will move the queen, queen c4, king h8, and once again, it's time to think. Tell me how to continue here. We want to open the position as much as possible. I think it's time to discuss it. There have been many good moves mentioned and also some were not that good. So let me begin with the not that good one. The idea is to open more files. All of you have said it. So let's open more lines. F5 is not the correct move. The idea is good. You want to open more files, but careful because sometimes there are moves that help the opponent. So there was this undeveloped bishop on c8, and there was this rook on e8, which was not really active. After f5, if black captures, we are opening the e file for black's rook. And even though we can capture on f5, this bishop, our bishop on e3 is hanging, but we are attacking the queen. But we have just developed the opponent's bishop. Bishop takes f5. The rook is now attacking our bishop, and it has an open file. The bishop is fine on f5. And it doesn't really seem that we have achieved anything. It doesn't seem like black's king is more open now. What we have achieved is to develop the opponent's pieces. So careful. Yes, the idea is good. You want to open the position, but it does matter how to carry the idea out. So we have the correct idea, find the way to carry it out. Another move that I have seen by many of you is actually a very strong move. F takes g5. Yes, we want to open the position. So let's ask what happens after f takes g5. Well, black has to capture. And now what happened? Look at this diagonal. Woo! Look at the black king there in the corner. Yes, we are opening the position. So after f takes g5, f takes g5, how can you even make the white queen be ready to swing to the king side and also find a way to open diagonals for our bishop? We can sacrifice a pawn for it. That's my tip. What shall we do here? I said that we can sacrifice. Yes, we can. So the move is e5. Correct. Well done. Yes. We just tell the opponent, okay, you want that pawn, take it. But now our bishop will be even more active. The queen will arrive to the king side, and also we have the f5 for the rook. Well, we've had it before pushing e5 too, but all the pieces will be great. What happens if black captures this pawn? Is that really good for him? He's a pawn up now. Are we getting scared? Will we lose this position? Or this is something that we wanted? We wanted him to capture on e5. How to continue here with white? Let's see. Knight takes e5, and it's white to move. Yes, Cormac, we will discuss afterwards what if he doesn't capture a pawn. But first of all, I would like to know what if he does, because if you offer a pawn or any material, first of all, you need to calculate what happens if it's accepted. So before you sacrifice a piece, calculate what happens if the opponent really captures it. If you want to sacrifice the pawn, let's see what happens in case the opponent wants to take it. Knight takes e5. Bishop d4, of course, or queen c3, both move orders are fine. The point is that there will be a lot of pressure on this diagonal, and after queen c3, he will have to move the knight away. And even if, for instance, after bishop g7, queen g7, we can even exchange queens. I know that in general, I have always told you not to exchange queens when the opponent's king is weak, but in this position, we don't only have that as a factor, but that we can capture the pawn immediately. We win back the pawn with bishop h5, and even if the opponent captures our queen, we have traded queens, the black king is still bad. And it's not only the king, but the rook on b8 that cannot move, the bishop on c8 that cannot be developed. So basically, black is playing this position without a rook and a bishop. That's why we can even afford to exchange queens, because even if we don't give mate, we might give mate, look at that king. But even if we don't give mate, black's position is horrible. He cannot develop his pieces, and we will just go for this g5 pawn. And sooner or later, this position, with those h and g passed pawns, plus the opponent not being able to develop his pieces, this position is winning. So that's why after e5, he shouldn't really capture a pawn. But if he doesn't, let's say he goes, I don't know, bishop e7 just to do something, we can actually, there's so many good moves here, but I think the most simple is to place the rook on f1 and say that, yeah, now we have the f file as well. Later we can go bishop d3, and simply it's just so problematic for black to hold this position. We are not winning immediately, but with a pawn on g5 and the pawn on h5, this is really a position where black regrets having pushed those pawns. He wants to have those pawns on g7 and h7 and not on g5 and h5. So we are punishing him for having advanced those pawns. Let's see what happened in the game, because it's slightly different. After king h8, Motile played e5 immediately. The same idea. He wants to open the position, and he is not afraid of giving up a pawn or two for opening everything. So g takes f4, queen takes, and he lets the opponent capture the c5 pawn. Here, queen h4 is already a really good move. He would have won the pawn back immediately, but he was just really patient. He played king h1 first. Both moves are good, and this pawn, the h5 pawn, will fall anyway. So what happened in the game was knight c6, queen h4, and you can see here that this is just such a sad position for black. He is losing the pawn up he had, and bishop h5 is a big threat. Bishop e7, bishop takes, queen h7, just not to lose the rook. So actually we cannot capture it because the bishop is pinned, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that this king is horribly weak. So how to bring more pieces to the king side? We have the queen, we have the bishops, but we want to have more pieces, especially pieces that can fight on those open files. So how to bring more pieces to the king side? Alright, there are many good moves here, many good ones, good options, and you've said it. Many of you have chosen the best one. I like rook f1 too, that was mentioned. Rook c3 is a move that, yes, it could be a rook swing, but there's a bishop on e3. So actually now we are not using the third rank for the rook swing, but we are using the fourth rank. That's where we can swing the rook to the g file. So sometimes you have to be creative, and even though it's very usual to place the rook on the third rank and then swing it to the other flank, now we need the fourth rank because that's where we have a free way to the king side. Rook c4 with the idea of going rook g4, and black can hardly do anything. As I said, it's not only about the king, that's a big problem, but the other problem is that he has a rook on b8 that cannot move, he has a bishop that he cannot develop, so his position is horrible. After rook c4, he played rook d8 because you know that when you are defending, you should try to exchange pieces, but anyway, it doesn't matter. He is like a piece and the rook down with those rook and bishop on c8 and b8. So very bad position, and after bishop takes, of course we go rook g4. That's what we wanted, that's why we played rook c4. After knight e5, it's true that, okay, here let's just say that, yeah, we are threatening with moves like, why I'm drawing in red? That's a good move. Green, rook g6, rook h6. That would be really, really painful for black, so he has to avoid it. Knight e5, attacking our rook, controlling the g6 square, but now we just alter our plan. We go rook e4 and we threaten to capture this knight, because after rook takes and f takes e5, this bishop would be hanging on d8. So he went queen c7, and now after bishop d4, actually, black resigned because there are way too many threats. I must say that bishop d4, yes, it's a good idea to threaten bishop takes, but even without that move, for instance, bishop f7 check, why not to give this check? White is simply winning. It should be a mate in a few moves. After king g7, queen g3 check, we can even give up this bishop, because after king takes, rook h4 and rook h7 will win the game. The point is not in which way to win, because here at the end of the game there were already so many winning moves. The point was that when the opponent started pushing those pawns on the king side with g5 and h5, let me go back to that position. A few moves later, g5 and then even h5. First of all, we should not be scared. Yeah, let's see if there are any threats, but objectively, it's just like, yeah, it looks like he wants to launch an attack against our king, and it's never pleasant to be under attack. But just take a deep breath and think about the position objectively. This pawn move, g5, then h5, threatening g4, is not a real threat. It's just optical, that it's like black is pushing, black is going against our king. No. What he is actually doing is weakening his own king. Here, the really weak king is black's king, not white's king. That's why these pawn pushes were actually in favor of us. So thank your opponent for pushing those pawns and open the position. First of all with c5 and then with f4. f4 was a very important move. And even after that, either this way, as in the game with e5, or f takes g5 and e5. The point is that the more you open the position, the weaker the opponent's king is, because he has pushed those pawns in front of the king. So yes, you can get away with moves like this, g5, as long as the position is closed. That's why when you're playing against a position like this, you have to open the position as much as possible, so we reach positions like this and end up winning the game, because this is where the opponent's king will really, really be weak. In a closed position, he can survive. It might be even a good idea to advance pawns when the position is closed, the center is closed, for instance in the Kingsian defense. But here, if we can open the position, the opponent's king should suffer. He's lacking those pawns in front of his king. Let's go for another example, because this was just one, but we have at least one more. e4, e5, today we are dealing with these openings. On Friday we will see examples with d4 and also castle queen side. So this is just one way to see positions where the opponent pushes pawns in front of his king and how to punish him for doing that. Once again, this is a very solid position. It doesn't seem like there will be anything wrong happening. Let me just go to the position that I want to talk about. Here, after queen e2, black decided that it was time to attack, and he went for it. Yes, he did. He played g5. Wow, what a strong move. Isn't it a strong move? He's attacking so much. He wants to go g4. Are we scared? Once again, are we afraid of this pawn push? Tell me if you are scared, and also tell me what are the drawbacks of g5. Very, very good, guys. Yes, we are not scared. And yes, the g5 move has weakened the black king. The pawn itself can be weak on g5. And what is so important too, and many of you have said it, I'm so proud of you. That's how to have the strategic vision. F5 is a hole now. This square is weak forever. Since these pawns have been pushed, e5 and g5, the f5 square is a hole in black's pawn structure, and that's an outpost for our pieces. And yes, we can go there with a knight. So either from c4, e3 and f5, or from, oh, what am I doing? From f1, g3, f5, or from f1, e3, f5. The point is, wow, so many arrows. The point is that we want to go to f5 because that's a hole in black's position, and we don't care about black's attack because this is just some illusion that he can attack here. So knight c4 was played in the game. The pawn is hanging now. We are starting bishop takes g5, so he should do something about it. He can go, for instance, h6, but then we will just continue with our plan. Well, continue with our plan, no. We can actually capture a pawn here if we calculate a bit. Our queen will be hanging too, but the queen on d7 is hanging as well, so that's a pawn up. Let me just show you until the very end. Doesn't matter that our knight is hanging because the bishop is hanging too. All you need to is to calculate a bit before you capture on e5, just to make sure that we are not blundering anything. But in this case, knight takes e5 wins the pawn. So black played b5 here. He's being tricky, but we just say we don't care. What if we go here immediately? It's a good move. But I think what white did not want is that, yes, he has won a pawn, but it's not like we are winning immediately. We are not giving mate. We are a pawn up. So yeah, everyone who would have said knight takes e5, it's a good move. Pawn up. Everybody likes to have a pawn up. Material advantage. But he just thought that this f5 square is so tempting. He prefers to have a knight on f5 and no material advantage. That's why he played, first of all, rook d1. That's a tempo, winning a tempo with this queen. And after queen e8, knight e3. So it depends on your taste, of course. If you want to win the pawn, you can. But what Onishuk wanted, he's a very strong grandmaster, is to have this beautiful knight on f5. Black can prevent it by capturing on e3. But that means another advantage for us. After bishop takes, the dark squares are weak. So look at this c5 square, look at the pawn on g5, and look at the black king. So now we won't have this knight on f5, or at least not yet. But what we do have is that the opponent had to give up his bishop, the dark squared bishop, and bishop c5 is almost winning material. Let me show you. He has to protect the pawn with h6, and after bishop c5, knight e7. There are positions where even we can advance the pawn. So g4 here. Let me explain. Before you say that I'm going crazy, I'm teaching how not to push those pawns, how to punish when the opponent pushes those pawns, and now I'm saying that yes, we should push our pawn as well. Sometimes, rarely, not often, but in this position, it's winning material. After g4, our knight is not pinned anymore, so we can capture on e5. And it doesn't matter that black is winning the e4 pawn, because after rook d4, there are so many threats on the board. We are threatening to capture on e4, and if the bishop moves away, then problems will come on the e5 too. We can play rook e1 and then jump away with this knight. There's this pin, the knight cannot move away, the rook is on f8 trapped, he cannot move away either. So this position is just very bad. And yes, it looks bad that we have pushed this pawn. So be careful about those moves. It's only good here because we are winning material basically. Black cannot do anything. Black cannot move the queen away. If he cannot move the queen away, then he cannot move his rook away. And if he cannot move the rook, then he cannot move the knight from e7. So we will just attack this knight on e7 and win the game. That's why sometimes it's difficult, but sometimes we can go g4. Let me go back to this position. Here, you can play in different ways. You can also play on the queen side, But g4 here wins the game because after knight takes, as I said, rook d4 and all the white pieces are coming. So sometimes, but only when you see that you are winning material or you have a very good attack, you can advance those pawns in front of your king. But be careful. Please be careful with this because pawns never go backwards. So unless you see that you have something very, very good coming after pushing the pawn, winning material or having a very strong attack, do not push the pawns. Only in this case when it's winning the game. Let's go back to this moment. After knight e3, the opponent decided that he's not so scared. He doesn't care about knight f5. What he wants is to continue his attack. And he went for it. g4. So he plays g5, then he plays g4. He wants to mate us, but we don't care. H takes g4, knight takes. And now, well, the problem is that we cannot go knight f5 because the f2 pawn would be hanging. But still, it doesn't matter. Yes, that's a weak square and we would love to have a knight there, but sometimes you cannot carry out all your plans. The point is that after exchanging this knight, there are many good moves here. We can capture the pawn on b5. If we want to have material advantage, we can go for that. We can win the exchange by playing bishop h6. Who doesn't love a move like bishop h6? So everything is winning in this position because the black king is weak. That's a red piece, not a green piece. The rook cannot move from f8. This pawn is hanging too. Everything is wrong in black's position. The funny thing is that Onishuk didn't win the pawn. He didn't take it. He didn't play bishop h6 to win the rook on f8. He decided that instead of all that, what he will do is to give mate. So he played queen d2. And that's, I think, a very instructive move. So yes, we can win an exchange, we can win a pawn, but why not to give mate if that's a quicker way to win? We are threatening queen g5, winning the bishop. And also, if the queen appears on the king side, that usually means a lot of trouble for a weak king like this one on g8. Bishop e7 protects the g5 square, but we just go for it anyway, queen h6. The closer the better, isn't it? Now we can go next move, knight g5 for instance, if we calculate it, of course. So the opponent went for bishop takes f3, and here it is your turn to think, because I will not explain it why. Tell me, do we have any other candidates move here than g takes f3? Congratulations everyone! Yes, 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 yes! Rook d3. Look at this move. Our knight has just been captured on f3. And instead of the automatic g takes f3, we play rook d3. We say, who cares that you have captured the piece? I'm giving mate. Rook d3, and if the bishop goes away, well, he did. He played bishop takes e4. What else could he do? Rook g3 check. If king h8, then it's mate. So he played bishop g6, and now calculate. Let's give mate to that black king. What can we do here? Alright, many of you have discovered that there's a pin on the a2 g8 diagonal. Our bishop is great on b3, so we can capture on g6. Rook takes g6 check, h takes, queen takes. The pawn is pinned, the queen cannot be captured, so he has to go king h8. And now, well, there are still more ways to win the game, but perhaps the easiest is what Onishuk did. Check either on h6 or on h5, but what he wanted is after queen h5, king g8, bishop h6, and he is threatening not to capture the rook. He doesn't care about the rook, but he's threatening queen g6 check and queen g7 mate. Black cannot do anything. If you go bishop f6, then the bishop will be captured. So it's mate anyway a few moves later. Let's just put it on the board because it's beautiful. This is how the game would have ended after bishop h6. In this position, the opponent resigned. There's one thing I've almost forgot to mention. Thank you guys for asking in the chat. In the position after knight e3, bishop takes e3, bishop e3, h6, bishop c5, and knight e7, I was saying that it's possible, sometimes, rarely, but it's possible to play g4, to advance a pawn in front of our king, but you have to be so careful about it. So only do it, please, please guys, only do it if the position is completely closed, or in a position like this, where there are open lines already, we can only go g4 if it wins the game. Just playing g4 and not knowing what happens next, no, then don't push it. You can only push it if it wins. And here the reason is that now we can capture this pawn, as I said, and after rook d4, we have a winning position. Black cannot do anything about the pin. The knight is pinned on e7, the queen cannot go away, the rook cannot move from f8, and we will win that knight by playing rook e1 and attacking the knight by moving away our knight. But many of you have asked, what happens if after g4, the opponent does what we have learned from the first example, and he captures this pawn on g4. Are we losing here with white? Knight takes g4, h takes, bishop takes. Is it good for black, this sacrifice? Let's see, what do you think about it? I have seen the best move already, but in this case it wasn't that easy. Yes, you can go, you can consider rook d3, you can consider king g2, but the main problem here for white, if there is a problem, then the problem is this pin. So let's escape from the pin as soon as possible. Queen e3, the knight is protected, the queen is fine on e3, and we are just a piece up. So no matter that black has sacrificed on g4, he has 2 pawns for the piece, but it is not enough. And actually, in some positions, after moving the rook, we can even sacrifice on g5 in many positions. Let's just make a few more moves. For instance, knight g6. Let's say that this knight is coming to f4. Yeah, it looks scary, but don't be scared, because we have counterattack and we are a piece up. We can capture this rook whenever we want. I did not capture it now because it cannot go away, so you take it whenever you want it. That will be already a rook up. We are a piece up, then we will be a rook up. So this position is horrible for black. He cannot do anything. Even if he wants to attack, it means that he has to give up a whole rook for it, and whenever the knight jumps to f4, we will capture this pawn. And who is the person attacking? It will be white attacking. So we will capture the rook on f8, we will capture the pawn on e5, and this position is winning for white. That's why g4 in this position is good, but as I said, be very, very careful about moves like this, please, because sometimes it will be good, but many other times pushing pawns, like as black did here. Oh, those arrows, let me delete them. No, it takes too much time to delete all the arrows one by one, but anyway, pushing g5. Let me show this position, because if not, it's just impossible to see what's going on the board. So normally, it's bad to advance those pawns unless the position is completely closed or there is something that wins immediately, wins material most likely. So don't, if there is no reason, no winning line, or the position is open like this one, just don't push those pawns. Those pawns have to be close to your king. Those are the pawns that defend your king. Those are the bodyguards of your king. Keep them close to your king. The bodyguards are supposed to be next to the king and not far away by pushing g5 and later even g4. Here black was really brave, but it only led to his loss, a defeat after these moves, queen d2. There were so many winning moves, but anyway, this was beautiful that after bishop takes f3, rook d3, and black is being mated. I will show you one last example, which actually is already an introduction for Friday's lesson, because it will be, well, we will see some d4 games. This is still e4, that's why I wanted to show it still today, but it will already be about having the king on the other side, on the queen side. It's a Morphe game from 1859, so quite an old one, but sometimes these games are just so entertaining. So here you will see black playing pretty badly. Here he's already losing a pawn, but doesn't matter. We are checking this game for fun mainly. And so white is doing everything fine. White has castled, white is a pawn up, white has beautiful pieces, but you still need to win the game. And in this position, you should tell me what's the best way to play. What do you think? How shall we continue here? How to make black's position even worse? How to create more weaknesses in his position? Let's discuss it. e5 should be considered because when the opponent's king is in the center, it's on e8 now, still on e8, that means that we want to open the position, we want to attack this king in the middle of the board. So e5 is of course a move that you should consider, but here e5 doesn't really help that much. We don't have the rook on e1, so we would need to play rook e1 first and then e5 and capture on e5 to be able to give a check on the e file. What we can do instead immediately is bishop takes f6, and many of you have said it, so I'm very proud once again, because this destroys black's pawn structure, and after knight d4 we are opening the diagonal for the queen, so we want to attack the king as quickly as possible, but it was easier to take on f6 and then threaten queen h5 check, because it's faster than playing rook e1 and e5. So in this position, black took on d4 and forgot that this check will be so painful. This is something you should learn. And here, yeah, you might say this is easy, yeah, who cares? But many times when the opponent captures a piece, we capture automatically. Don't ever take back anything immediately, even if you have calculated it. Just take 5 seconds to think, doesn't have to be a lot of time, but before each and every recapture, think for a moment if you have anything stronger. Many times we make mistakes because we go on autopilot mode and we just take everything back immediately. Here, if we go c takes d4, it's a good move, but queen h5 is a lot better move. So always think when there's an exchange happening that shall I take back immediately or do I have something even better? It's very useful to think always for a few seconds. I don't ask you to think for a half an hour, but think for a few seconds before each and every capture if you have anything stronger. Many times the opponent misses moves like queen h5 because he always thinks about capture, recapture. And that's when you can surprise the opponent by moves like queen h5 check. The king has to move, and that's so painful when he cannot castle anymore. King d8, look at that poor king. So it's not only a pawn up anymore, but it's also a horrible king on d8. And soon Morphe will win the game. Let's see how. King c8. Actually, I will ask you what you would play here because we have the queen on h5 and the bishop on d5. These pieces are cool, but we need more pieces. Which piece where? We want to develop the knight, but we also want to find a good square for the rook. What shall we do here with white? Actually, all the moves that you guys have mentioned are great. You can go a4, you can go knight d3, you can play rook c1. Rook c1 is actually what Morphe played. All those moves are great. The point is to keep the initiative going. So play very strong moves, always threaten something. No, we cannot win the knight on c6 yet, but who doesn't want to have a rook on a semi-open file facing the opponent's king? So this is a great square for the rook. And we can go a4 instead of this move, or later we can play knight d2, knight b3, heading to a5 if we capture on c6. All those moves are great. The point is that you have an idea, you want to attack the black king, and then you see where to place the pieces in order to carry out our plan. So a4, of course, instead of rook c1 is also very strong because we learned that we need to open the position if we want to attack this guy here. So a4 is also very strong. Rook c1, and here suddenly black decided that it was time to win back material and capture on d4, which is a losing move. And you guys will tell me why is it so bad. Maybe this question was too easy because you have all guessed it immediately. We are not winning material yet. But of course the strongest move here is bishop takes b7, check. King takes and queen d5. We are threatening to capture the knight, so the knight has to go back. That's the only way to avoid the loss of material immediately, but this position is incredibly unpleasant for black. It's a losing position because this pin is something that he cannot really get away from. He could only go king b6 in order to get the king out of the pin. Every other move is losing the knight, so he has to protect the knight with the king as well. Queen and king, the queen on d7 and the king on b7, protecting the c6 knight, but that means just something really bad if the good move for black, well, good move. The only possibility to get away from the pin is by playing king b6. So having this in mind, that's the only try for black. You know that he wants to go king b6 next move in order to be able to move the knight away. If he doesn't move the knight away, we will just go knight d2, double the rooks and capture this knight. So he has to do something about the pin before we win material. He wants to go king b6. What would you want to play when the king is on b6? How can you attack that king on b6? Tell me, what would you play here with white? You guys are so quick. Yes, once again, yes, it's a4. We want to open files and we want to attack the opponent's king. So a4, we are threatening to capture on b5, and then if a takes, queen takes, we are winning the knight on c6, or we are giving mate, or both. So yes, a4 is the best move. Michael asked me if black can play for a5 and rook a6. The idea is good, but whenever he pushes a5, there's queen takes b6 winning the knight. The king has to go somewhere and rook takes c6 wins. So unfortunately for black, he doesn't really have any good options. After a4, he did try king b6, at least it protects the b5 pawn. But now in this position, we will force him to go... Force him to go where? Very good once again. Yes, it's funny that we play a4 to open files, but sometimes we should alter our plan when the opponent plays moves like king b6. So now we don't focus anymore on a takes b5 that much. But what we want is to have the pin once again. So we go a5 and tell the king, go back to b7. And in this position, there's no escape from this pin. The only way would be something very slow like a rook e8, rook e5, but we just simply don't let the opponent play that. So we will find the quickest way to attack the c6 knight with one more piece. We have the queen, we have the rook, we want one more piece as quickly as possible. Tell me what's the way to bring one more piece to the attack of that knight. That will be the last move of Morphe because the opponent resigns after this move. Congrats once again. Yes, it is the rook lift. We have seen so many games where the rook lift wins the game. Rook a3 threatening rook a c3. Yes, I managed to pronounce it. And that wins the piece, wins the game. That's why the opponent resigned. So rook a3, you can do nothing against rook c3 and rook takes c6 afterwards. The last question is, and I see many of you telling me, king b6, a5 check, what if knight takes a5? And you guys will answer that question. How to play here with white? There are two ways here to win the game, and you guys have found both of them. I'm amazed. Very good job. Which one shall I start with? Rook takes a5. Wow! King takes fourth. If not, we are just a piece up. And here, many of you have spotted this move, rook c6, which doesn't let the king go back to b6. So we are threatening queen a2 check, after which king b4 and queen a3 is made. So here the only move that black has is to give up the queen. But this is just a queen and a knight against two rooks, and this king is still horrible. So this, oh, no arrow, just simply horrible king. This king is horrible, this position is lost. And the other way, after a5 check and knight takes, was to play queen d4 check. So if the king goes away, of course, that's easy. We capture the knight. But what about c5? Can he push c5? Well, here we once again have a beautiful move. Rook takes c5, and this queen on d7 would be hanging. So black cannot capture the rook, and if he cannot do that, any check, any rook check, I don't even know where to draw it. Wherever you want, the rook goes away, and we will win the knight, or even more material or mate, anything. With the king on b6, knight on a5, it's impossible that black can survive this position. So this is also winning on the spot. Let me just show, I don't know, a move like knight b3, because that's the only move that looks like there's something going on. Now we cannot give any discover check like rook c, I don't know, rook. If we just move the rook, of course our queen was hanging, so that's really stupid. If we move away the queen, then we have lost the rook. So this is the only thing that you had to see, that you had to foresee before playing queen d4, rook takes c5, that after knight b3, nope, panicking, we are still winning, and the winning move is The winning move is rook takes b5. Well done everyone who have said double check. Oh yeah, double check. There's no knight takes d4 because the rook is also giving a check. You have to move the king. You have to play king takes b5 and then queen a4 wins the queen on d7 and the king will still be horribly weak. But it's good to win the queen first and then give mate a few moves later. So that was it for today. We learned about advanced pawns in the castle, and with that title I meant pawn structures like, let me show in the previous game for instance, when the opponent goes really brave and starts pushing pawns in front of his king. Sometimes it might be scary because you think that, oh my god, I'm being attacked, g5, g4, but if you think calmly, just take a deep breath, many times you will realize that these kind of threats, this attack is just something that is in your favor because what is really weak here is not your king, but the opponent's king. And many squares, like this f5 square, have been weakened because of the pawn pushes. So the f5 square, then the h6 square, all those squares are there for you because the opponent started advancing his pawns in front of his own king. On Friday we will have another show, another middle game show, continuing this topic on the advanced pawns in the castle. We will talk about castle queen side and how we can punish the opponent whenever he pushes those pawns in front of the king. And after the show, on Friday, we will have a thematic tournament with my commentary. So stay tuned for the announcement, what time it will be. It might be in the evening as usual, but I'm not sure yet if it's at 6, 5, 4, 7. So stay tuned for Chess24's announcement on what time it will be exactly, because first we will have a show, we will learn once again a lot together and have fun. And after that there will be a thematic tournament practicing what we have learned today and on Friday. So I hope to see you on Friday. And not only on Friday, but you guys will see me tomorrow too. Candidates tournament tomorrow, round 4 commentary with Pepe Cuenca. We will be here to cover all the games, all those exciting games of the candidates tournament. So I will see you guys tomorrow and also on Friday, basically every day. Be here on Chess24 and we will talk every day. Have a great evening and see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.